And I felt within me all the stars and all the galaxies and beyond. And I felt our sun, the sun of Earth, inside me. And it was churning with bliss. It was like raging bliss.
All right, so hi, Soul Family, and welcome to my channel. I'm your host, Haji, and this is amazing pre-birth and possibly meditation stories. Our guest today is Christian Sundberg. Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so Christian, dive straight in and tell us about your amazing story.
Sure. Okay. So before I dive in, I have to just say there's no words to describe what I'll attempt to share. I'll attempt to do it briefly as well because it's kind of a long story and I've shared it many times. But I have to say that there's just no language for this. Language is form, it's symbols, that we've learned in our local world, and our true nature and where we come from fully transcends the earth context. So there's just no good language. So I just have to say that first. So to try to summarize, so my body is 44 years old right now. 14 years ago, when I was the age of 30, I took up a long-term meditation practice, and after a few months, I had my some so I had non-physical experiences, out-of-body experiences, and then a few months after that, I had this pre-birth memory return to me, and I realized that I had remembered this as a very small child up until the age of like 5, and I just didn't talk about it then, because nobody else talked about it. But when it returned at the age of 30, it was very full and very deep. But I didn't share it for like 8 years because I'm a working professional. I'm a normal type person. This is the kind of thing you don't talk about. But then about 6 years ago, I just felt this nudge like the ground is fertile now, and the earth is kind of in this place where we're going through the awakening process. So that just means we're rediscovering really what we are and growing towards love, working past old fear. So I felt, what am I afraid of? So I've shared it a number of times now. Okay, so I know this sounds wild, but I remember existing before I had ever physically incarnated and coming across a being who had physically incarnated and feeling from him this incredible quality of essence, this power, this freedom, and this joy. Because there in the higher systems, the exchange is telepathic. We can feel from each other what we are and what we've been, who we are, what qualities we're shining with. It's hard to describe. And he was full of so much power and freedom and joy. And I asked him, like, oh my gosh, like, what did you do to be this? And he shared with me a number of things, but chief among them, he had lived a physical lifetime, that he had suffered a long-term health condition of some kind, some pain that stayed with him in the body. And the way that he like met that experience and integrated it, oh, it allowed this incredible refinement of his being. So I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. Like, no matter what it takes, I'm ready to do this. Wow. Like, I was just so excited. And if his first response was something like, well, that's what they all say. Like, not in a negative way, but just like you just don't understand how challenging this can potentially be, because I just hadn't experienced it yet. And I was persistent and I said, no, I really want to do this. So he said, well, go talk to your guides. So I lived a number of times, found this being later. He encouraged me to continue. And most of my pre-birth memory is of a time somewhat immediately preceding this life. It wasn't this lifetime, but just before the lifetime before this, I was in a waiting state. Um, this is difficult to describe, but I was in a realm of golden light. And I remember being connected to everything and having the ability to, oh, this is so difficult to describe in language, engage many places at once and great acts of creativity and communication and expression. But this guide coming to me now and again and asking me, are you ready to go back yet? Are you ready to go back yet? And eventually saying, okay, I'm ready to go back. It wasn't like negative or pestering. It was more like reminding me of my own intention because I was so focused into this freedom. And so they brought me a lifetime that, okay, so I reviewed with my guide what I can only describe as like my state, who I've been and what I've known and what I've done. And it was really obvious the thing that I needed to work on. I don't like the words work on because it makes it sound like a task or like we have to do something. It's actually not required of us. There's nothing we technically have to do. It's just that I could see I had this really low vibration fear that had bested me in a previous experience. And in that previous experience, I had, because of the fear, become something of an egoic monster in that life. And I'd caused damage for many other people. So I could see that it would be best if I could really engage that and heal that. And so they brought me a lifetime that was appropriate for that intention to process and heal that fear. And I reviewed that life in great detail. And I remember accepting that life. And then I remember the process of accepting the veil. Okay, so the veil is just a word we use, but it means the limitations we wear in consciousness in order to have a physical experience, in order to be of the physical perspective all the way. And it's a forgetting, you could say, a very deep forgetting of all that we really are so that we can just be the human character. And I remember this plummet in vibration, and I can't stress this enough, this incredible dive down, 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 lower, 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 lower. And it was like when you got to the bottom, just keep going, lower, 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 and then lower more, and then lower more, and then lower some more. That's what it felt like coming down into the constraints of the body and having all of my knowing cut off and all of my connectedness disappear. And in that experience, I immediately was like, I am not doing this. There's no way. I am not going to tolerate this for a lifetime. Because I had fear immediately rise up. So I summoned my might and I smote the veil. I like fought my way back past it. And I was successful in doing that, but I realized that I had killed the body that was to be mine. I had killed the fetus, and I had a life review, just like near-death experiencers describe, where I could see the impact that my fear and my rejection of that body had upon the mother and many hundreds of other people actually through the mother, because I had like heaped grief on the mother. And because I had done that, hundreds of other people would be negatively impacted because of my fear. And, so I was like, wow. So I see from that standpoint, you can see this is so difficult to describe, like trying to pack this into language, but you can see that it's okay. Like there's not actually like a failure or that you did something wrong, that I could just see very objectively, like, oh man, I got a lot of fear. So eventually they brought me this life, and this life was not as perfect of a match as the first one would have been, actually, but it was pretty good, given the specificity of my intention to face and integrate this fear. And so I reviewed this life in incredible detail. I remember reviewing millions and millions of possibilities of how this life might unfold, like a huge flow chart, like a tree. Like if you laid it on its side and started at the thick end and worked your way out to the branches, all these branches of how the life might play out. And there were events in it, but it wasn't primarily about events. It was primarily about what would it be like to be me, like to feel like being Christian the human from this perspective. What would the experience be like? And I made certain requests for the life, and I reviewed it very thoroughly. And I remember there having to be a moment to say yes. I don't remember that moment, but I do remember them being in this like waiting area and this guide coming to me and being like, go now, like really grabbing my attention, like not in 5 seconds kind of thing, like because time is different over there. And a short amount of time might be a long amount of time here or vice versa. So it was like grabbing my attention, like go now. And so the next thing is I was in this I don't know how to describe it. It's like a room that was like being in like a metal room up in space where below me was the earth, and I was over a shaft. The earth was below me, and there were these beings in front of me who I can only describe as veil technician um, type people, veil technicians, veil application technicians, something like that. And they do this thing where they like make the veil fit to you because the soul is very unique and the lifetime is very unique, the biology of the body and the energy of the family and the country and even the planet, it's very specific energies. And they do this thing where they make this organic fit. And I remember them asking me one last time, "Are you sure?" And I knew that once I said yes here, I was in for the ride. It was like getting in a roller coaster and you can't get off kind of thing. And I said yes. And then once again, I felt this plummet in vibration down, 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 lower, 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 more, more, lower, 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 all the way down into this very dense experience of being in the body. And this time I just focused on not fighting it because I remembered the last time. And once I was in the body, I remember sending this message back to the technicians. Did it take? Like, did the veil take? And then sending one message back, yes. And then I felt accomplished actually, because even just making it to the earth it's such a huge spiritual accomplishment, actually, just even getting here, because it's not a small step, it's a big step. And it's like you have to have a certain level of like soul proficiency or something to even do it. So I felt accomplished for even being here. And then after a while, I was like, I'm not doing this. This is so ridiculous. This is so dark. This is so, I'm so, and I just felt cut off. I felt like I had lost all that I really am. Oh, and so I started to summon my might to find my way out again. And as I did, the most holy moment of my entire life happened. And this is so holy and precious to me, but the only way I can describe it is what we call God, the great I am presence of all things, came to me and expanded me back out. And I felt within me all the stars and all the galaxies and beyond. And I felt our sun, the sun of earth, inside me. And it was churning with bliss. It was like raging bliss. And God said to me, "This is still what you are. You can never not be this." And I was like, oh, oh, like it was so like, oh, I didn't need to be afraid, you see, because I had perceived that I had lost everything that I am and I was going to fight like hell out of fear. But I realized I don't need to fight. So I let go and surrendered into, the simple existence of being in the womb. And I remember the day I was born. I remember just sensory information and people touching me and my body being cut. And I remember being super curious and looking up at the nurses and like feeling a lot of love for them actually. And anyway, so that's a super quick like summary. As I got a little bit older, I remember drawing upon those memories and like cheating, like just because I was curious about things and I was wondering just things like a little kid might, like who's going to come over to the house, that kind of thing. But that diminished as I aged, because the more we focus into the thoughts, the stories, the conditioning, the identity, the human identity, that cements the veiling, actually, because now that's what we are. We are the form, not the spirit. We're just a separate person. So, and then that memory left me completely by around the age of 5. Yeah.